Hi, friends. Welcome to the She's Rooted Life podcast. I'm Talia, and we are at our fourth episode. If you are watching on YouTube, today is very laid back. I actually am recording this when my kids are down. 90%, I don't know why I'm talking so soft because they are asleep and they can't hear me. So, 90% of podcasts actually stop before getting to episode 10. And the only way that I can keep up with all this consistently is by having episodes like this where I'm recording at night. My makeup is off. I am ready to go to sleep. After I record this, I'm going to brush my teeth and go to bed and call it a day. So if you are watching this on YouTube, we're a little bit more relaxed, but I think it's actually important for this episode to come from a cozy place. There is a lot that we're going to talk about that could evoke some emotions that might lead to feelings of shame or maybe even a little bit of grief. And so I just want to encourage you that if you're listening to this, that none of this is coming from a place of judgment or of value or of worth. But we are in a place where I want to make sure we're talking about this and that we, as we're laying out the She's Rooted Life podcast, that we start with this foundation. This podcast episode is titled From Iniquity to Identity, the 5 Stages of Maturity and Why We Stay Stuck. We are chatting about all things developmental stages. And you guys, I geek out over stuff like this, but this was also my introduction to the life model back in 2019 and something that has helped me tremendously. I think that everyone knowing the stages that Dr. Jim Wilder from Life Model created after studying so many different cultures around the world, it is so important for us to know the way that God designed our brains to work. For many years, there were many parts of myself that I was unwilling to see, and shame was evoked. And so, again, I want to share this is not to shame anyone, but we are living in a world of great iniquity. I have learned that there are 3 types of sin: transgression, which is like a willingness to sin, not just slipping or making a bad choice, but it's like actually like a hardness of like, I don't care, I'm going to do this thing, even though I know that it's wrong. And then there's sin, like missing the mark, being human, falling short of the glory of God. And then there's iniquity. And when I learned about iniquity, it completely changed the way that I see that now in scripture. The way iniquity was taught to me is like a tree that's deformed when it was a baby tree and it was not planted on a steady foundation, or maybe a storm came and withered away essential parts. It needed like a crutch to sustain it. And then that tree bent to match that crutch. I'm going to draw back to this later in this episode, but this is iniquity. It actually shapes into our character. So maybe think of a child who grew up in an environment that was rigid, so that in order to feel safe, dishonesty was the only way not to receive like harsh punishment. And then therefore dishonesty became a part of their character. Or you think about just the mirror neurons that happen. Like we really do become the people that we are around. And so if you are around a parent who maybe has like angry outbursts, you are very likely to pick up on that. That would be like the iniquity, the parts of us that are actual like embedded into our character now. But there's beauty and there's hope, because we are told that Jesus was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way, and the Lord hath laid on him the iniquity of us all. Jesus came to earth fully God and fully human, and he showed us what it's like to be human without having any form of iniquity. No character flaws, no insecure attachment patterns, no immaturity. He is love in the flesh, secure, faithful, and steadfast. There were no guessing games with him and nothing to chase. He is a love unknown before him, a steady love that keeps its word, a love that honors the sacredness of every single life, even the least of these. He created belonging everywhere that he went. His presence carried joy and peace. Shalom. He lived completely secure in the Father's love, so secure that he never people pleased or fawned. He was a gentle protector, a lion, yet also the lamb that was led to the slaughter for our sake. And he did this for our iniquity, so that we could be healed by his wounds. His perfect love given so freely, so that we could be new creations. And just as he rose again, we rise with him as co heirs, claiming our inheritance of sons and daughters of the Most High God. And now we honor him by becoming the clearest version of ourselves that he designed us to be, not marked by iniquity, but rooted in love. A love expressed by giving him all that we have, and by loving our neighbor, even the least of these and our enemies. I hope that you walk away from today's episode encouraged that no matter where you are in your life right now and what holes you might find that you have in your maturity, that you leave with great hope, knowing that the Lord has so much in store for you. So, to get started, Life Model gathered a maturity chart that studied internationally and formed the 5 stages of maturity. All these stages come with primary needs and primary tasks that we need to be received by our community at each stage. And it's important to note that maturity and healing and moving in earned maturity is not linear. Chris Corsi says that the church is like Swiss cheese, that we all have our pockets or our holes of maturity in ourselves. And that's why we need each other, because when we all lay and stack on top of each other, we actually form into a whole block of cheese. And I love it so much. However, we are called to mature. The Koine Greek word for mature is teleos. It means complete, mature, and whole. Sometimes it's translated as perfect, but it does carry a much deeper meaning than perfection. It really is like a state of full development, lacking nothing and having reached its intended end. There is so much that the Lord wants to do in each human. He wants to see every human being living out the fullest, truest, unstained, or tainted version of themselves. This is maturity. And it is the clearest reflection of Him that we can be. And it all starts by freely receiving and then by continuing to freely receive and then learning to freely give. This is so clearly displayed in Scripture when Paul says to the Corinthian church in 2 Corinthians 13:9, "For we rejoice when we ourselves are weak, but you are strong. This we also pray for, that you become mature." And the maturity of those that we serve is so important that we would be like our Savior and make ourselves weak to help those who are weak to be strong. The strong and the weak both need each other to walk out maturity. Okay, guys, so here's the chart. It's from Living from the Heart, she just gave you. I'm also going to link that book in the show notes, as well as Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. I actually pulled from both of their assessments, but this is very heavily from the Living from the Heart. She just gave you the life model maturity chart, starting with the infant stage. So the infant stage is from birth to about 4 years of old, and the primary task needed to learn is to freely receive joyfully. And this comes from their people seeing them as a pure source of delight. All their needs are met without being a burden, and they are well attuned to. An infant that learns this delight is received without performance, just because you are you. I actually think if we were rooted in this kind of love, the overemphasis of self-love in our culture would be gone. Because in receiving this kind of love, an individual has a strong, steady foundation of self. I am a delight in all my emotions and in all of my needs. I am a delight, and I receive the joy and the peace that is being shared with me. Through Life Model and then Ed Corey's book, Face of Grace, I learned a richer meaning of grace. It is a gift of I delight in you out of nothing you have done, but simply for being you. I cherish you, and I'm offering you a gift of relationship with me. I'm not going anywhere. I'm steady, I'm consistent, and I'm safe. I will not overwhelm you with too much, and you yourself are not too much. This is the grace that while we are still sinners, Christ died for the world, and that the Father gave us the gift of Jesus, our Emmanuel, God with us. It is in infancy that we grow a wide capacity for joy, that our entire face can light up to see others, even people that we don't know. That joy is our baseline and that we can return to joy from upsetting emotions. This is really important for an infant to learn. And there's this trust that is developed that our people will meet our needs, that we learn how to receive, and that we begin to form a self identity through our people. Now, this happens through our people delighting in our unique existence and through countless moments of co regulation, where big emotions are not shushed or hushed or questioned or blown up even more. I love that phrase that says that when our children are going through chaos or having an emotional storm, that we need to be the calm in their storm and not part of that chaos. Our children's big emotions are met with a calm, steady presence that is not overwhelmed by that emotion, but parents that stay grounded and offer peace in the chaos of that big emotion. Then there's that consistent pattern of our people hearing our cries and distress and soothing us, through our people coming down to our level and attuning with our needs. Attunement is to see and understand the infant. It is connection that could even name that emotion for that infant. Like, I can see that you're angry. It is connection that can name what that infant is even experiencing. I don't know if you've heard this as well, but connection before correction. So that is a huge part of attunement. I think of that 3-year-old drawing on the walls with crayons. Oh, I know that those colors are so bright and so fun, and I can see how you would want to see what those look like on our wall. We draw on paper though, not on walls. So here's some paper for you to draw on, and let's keep all the crayons on the paper. Or I know that that garbage truck is huge and makes really loud noises. I can see why you would be scared. You're safe. I've got you, and I can hold you as long as you need. Attunement tells the infant, I see you, I've got you, the world is scary, but I'm here. And is this not what the Lord promises us? That in this world we will have trouble, but take heart, for I have overcome the world. One of my favorite artists, Tyrion, she is a Christian artist, and she has a song titled Big God, and the bridge talks about God and says that he's stronger than your brokenness, deeper than your dreams not seen yet, greater than your biggest fear, bigger, he's so much bigger, stronger when I couldn't get up, deeper, I could always feel your love, greater, you're picking me up, bigger, I could always feel your love. The things that feel really scary and big for us are never big for the Lord. When we do not receive what is needed in that infant stage, we form a weak identity, an identity rooted in fear and coldness that dominates our bonds. Bonds that are based in manipulation, self centeredness, or there is isolation and an overall dissatisfied personality. There is a withdrawing, a disengagement, or an unresponsiveness. There is an inability to regulate emotions, an uncontrollable emotional outburst, excessive worry or depression, an avoidance, suppression, deflection of emotions, and certain emotions. It's important to note that Dr. Jim Wilder found that 75% of men are at infant level maturity. And adult infants who have not received these important areas as babies will always be needy as adults. They will not be able to take care of themselves emotionally, nor will they be able to appropriately receive important things from others. Adult infants will not ask for what they need because they believe if others really cared for them, they would figure out what they needed. Adult infants cannot handle criticism, even if it's valid and constructive, because they see any negative feedback as a personal attack. Adult infants are often possessive of relationships, territory, power, and possessions. Adult infants use fear bonding to ensure others will stay bonded to them. And although high functioning adult infants can appear responsible in many areas, like handling finances, being punctual and reliable, emotionally they are severely crippled, making it difficult for them to have successful and enduring relationships. And then emotionally healthy spirituality describes an emotional infant as the following: I look for others to take care of me emotionally and spiritually. I often have difficulty in describing and experiencing my feelings in healthy ways and rarely enter the emotional world of others. I am consistently driven by a need for instant gratification, often using others as objects to meet my needs. People sometimes perceive me as inconsiderate and insensitive. I'm uncomfortable with silence or being alone. Now, this isn't like being in a room by ourselves on our phones, like actual silence, nothing to distract us, sitting in silence. When trials, hardships, or difficulties come, I want to quit God and the Christian life. I sometimes experience God at church and when I'm with other Christians, but rarely when I am at work or home. And so it's important for us to know that how have we gotten to this point? We've gotten to this point because it just takes one generation to not pass down these skills to another generation. And this is just so incredibly heartbreaking. And as I start here, I just pray that as you are listening to this, that there is a great encouragement. And like I said, a desire to love others and to give in a way that other people can also grow and heal, that we all need each other to grow and heal. We need the love of Jesus to receive, to heal, to gently restore, and not justify, but point out you were never given what you needed. Yet, also at a certain point in time, healing means that we were not responsible for what happened to us, but now we are responsible for handling the way that we are showing up present day. To say that it's my part in my healing to see how I'm contributing to my suffering and to the suffering of others around me. Okay, so the child stage. This is around ages 4 through 12. This transition is marked from infant to child stage by the child being able to say what they need. Age 12 is the earliest stage that this can be completed. And this stage is all about taking care of the self. We can teach manners, we can teach respect and honor, but this stage really is about the child, what it's like to be them in their own world. In this stage, a child needs to learn to ask for their needs and can say their thoughts and their feelings. And they need the adults in their lives to teach them how to appropriately express and articulate their needs. This stage is all about learning to do hard things by being challenged and encouraged to do difficult tasks even when they don't feel like doing them. Moving on, we have to know in this childhood stage what brings satisfaction. So, a child in this stage needs to learn, what do I like? What do I not like? There's this movie, Life with Father. Terrible quote. It's like a joke in my family, but the father tells them, "I'll tell you what you like and what you don't like," which is the complete opposite of what we want to shape in our children. At this stage, we want to teach our children what they're satisfied by. Like, is this meal something that you like? Is this movie something that you like? Do you like this kind of thing? And so we need people in our lives to be able to point out to us how we respond to different events that are coming our way and if we're showing satisfaction in that thing. And then developing personal resources and talents. This requires us to have caregivers who provide opportunities to develop our own unique talents and interests. We also learn how to know ourselves and make ourselves understandable to others. This requires our caregivers to guide us in discovering the unique characteristics of our heart, which again requires attunement. And lastly, we understand how we fit into history as well as the big picture of what life is all about. This requires our family to share with us the family history as well as the history of God's family. It's important for our children to know where they come from. When we do not learn these tasks, we experience continual frustration and disappointment because needs are not met. There tends to be passive aggressiveness. There is an obsession with or addicted to food, drugs, sex, money, and power, and a desperate chase to find satisfaction. There is a experience of failure, remaining stuck and undependable, consumed with comfort and a fantasy life. Fills life with unproductive activities despite very strong God given abilities. And there is a failure to develop a true identity, conforming to outside influences that misshape identity and feels disconnected from history and is unable to protect self from family lies or dysfunctions that are passed down. Now, I am going to combine emotional child and emotional adolescent because emotionally healthy spirituality has adolescent. Life model does not. Adolescent is actually a developmental stage that Western Industrial Revolution world created. And it's really unfortunate because there is so much energy and so much life that is in our teenage years that can often be wasted because of adolescence. So it's unfortunate, but life model actually starts adulthood at 12. So EHS, I'm going to combine child and adolescent. So child emotional maturity is when life is going my way, I'm content. However, as soon as I'm disappointed or stress enters the picture, I quickly unravel inside. I often take things personally, interpreting disagreements or criticism as a personal offense. When I don't get my way, I often complain, withdraw, manipulate, drag my feet, become sarcastic, or take revenge. I often end up living off the spirituality of other people because I am so overloaded and distracted. My prayer life is primarily talking to God, telling Him what to do and how to fix my problems. Prayer is more of a duty than a delight. And then adolescent is I don't like when others question me. I often make quick judgments and interpretations of people's behavior. I withhold forgiveness from those who sin against me, avoiding or cutting them off when they do something to hurt me. I subconsciously keep records on the love I give out. I have trouble really listening to another person's pain, disappointments, or needs without becoming preoccupied with myself. I sometimes find myself too busy to spend adequate time nourishing my spiritual life. I attend church and serve others, but with few delights in Christ. My Christian life is still primarily about doing, not being with Him. Prayer continues to be mostly me talking with little silence, solitude, or listening to God. Child adults who have adult bodies but are emotionally at the child level of maturity will always appear egocentric. Taking care of self includes the ability to push through on difficult tasks. This requires developing patience and persistence and takes some guidance. And the thing about taking care of ourselves is that it requires guidance. It requires someone patiently stepping down into our world and showing us all the beauty that there is to who we are as a person. Again, rooted in that infant level attachment of a joy love bond that I see you as a delight. And it's also important for children to know that they are a source of joy and delight despite the hard work that they can do. They also need to learn that failures are okay, that failures are a part of life, and that we want to actually like normalize failure. And that through all of it, that we then in that child stage actually see ourselves through the eyes of heaven. That there is a delight in our own life of knowing that there's a world and a person that I've been designed to bless in my own unique personhood. Unfortunately, 75% of women are at child stage maturity level. Now, if you can think of all of the relational fallouts, all of the wars in the world that are happening right now, all of the divisiveness that's happening, how much of a greater world would we live in if all of us matured into a greater identity, into who God designed us to be, and into, at the very least, the adult stage, which is where we're going to next. Like I said before, the adult stage starts at the age of 13. There is no adolescent in the life model. And this is from age 13 to the birth of your first child or when entering the parent role within a community. So, like you're serving in Boys and Girls Club, or you're an aunt or an uncle who's actually pouring into the next generation. The primary task in this age group is to take care of two people simultaneously. And what happens when this task is not learned is the lack of capacity to be in mutually satisfying relationships. So Dr. Jim Wilder says that in the neurotypically developing brain at around the age 13, the brain actually does a shift that goes from me to we. Mutual honor is really the trademark of someone who has earned their maturity in the adult stage, where we care for self and for others, and we bond with peers and developing a group identity. We need our caregivers to provide us with opportunities for these connections. And we also need to learn how to remain stable in difficult situations. We need to learn how to return ourselves and others to joy. And we need our caregivers to affirm that we'll make it through, sometimes in relational strain or rejection or perceived rejection. It can feel like literal death. Our brain does not know the difference between an attachment being threatened or our life being threatened. We need steady caregivers who can help us in relational difficulty remain true to ourselves. Another really important thing is that we have to be able to learn to take responsibility for how our personal actions affect others, including protecting others from self. So we have to be able to learn my actions have consequences and how I'm perceived by others and how I actually impact history. And in so many ways, this stage really is just all about ways that we can start pouring into our community. And the childhood stage, it would be learned that I'm taking care of my responsibilities. I'm doing chores for myself. Whereas now in the adult stage, it's about actually serving in a way that is for the community and not just for the benefit of what needs to be tended to in our own world. And then there is this ability for us to express the characteristics of our heart in a deepening personal style. And to do that, we need caregivers who will hold us accountable while still accepting and affirming aspects of our true self. We want to be able to be called higher and to be reminded of who we are. And then when we don't receive what we need and earn our maturity in this stage, we become self centered and leave others dissatisfied and frustrated. We conform to peer pressure and participate in negative and destructive group activities. It's really prevalent within the church that there are just different groups that form that are based off of mutual pain, like a shared pain, or also like a shared grievance. And then there's a lot of like gossip and low joy places that are just not fruitful for us. So it's not always just like gangs and violence and drug related. It can also just be like a lack of being able to actually bond through joy. Isolation or excessive self importance is a hallmark of someone who has not matured in this stage. Controlling, harmful, blaming, and unprotective to others, and does not become a life giving contributor to the community. Is self absorbed and uses others, is driven to play roles, prove self to the world, get results, and seek approval. When someone is in an adult body but functioning below the adult level of maturity, there is going to be an impossibility to have mutuality in that relationship. There is going to be a sense that I will always need to give more, tolerate more than this person would ever be willing to give back. In my last episode with Amy and Lisa, we talked about if you have the capacity, the beauty that it is to be able to pour into other people and to be a safe haven. For myself, I have learned that the only way that I can do that is if I have life-giving relationships that are also pouring into me. I went through a season where it was really hard because I was facing my own immaturity and my own attachment wounds, which we're actually going to talk about very soon. That it was something that made it really difficult for me because I was finding that me and a lot of my relationships were at very like infant, childlike maturity. And that was many of the reasons why we were clashing. And so this is so important for us. There can be so much healing that the Lord can do when we allow ourselves to accept where we are emotionally and to not live in a shame for where this is at, because this is actually part of the infant and childlike maturity, is avoiding anger or exploding with rage because I suppress until I just explode, and not being able to have like healthy correction given and life-giving correction that points out who we actually are. And it's really important for us to know that, again, it's not our fault for where we currently are at, but it is our responsibility now to grow and to mature. Mike Solvent from Life Model, I love that he tied in that scripture that Paul says, when I was a child, I thought like a child, yet when I became a man, I put childish thinking away and beside me. And how that actually ties in with the love is patient, love is kind. Now, the word love in the New Testament is Koine Greek agape. And we think of agape and it's like this unconditional love. But in Hebrew, that word for love is actually hesed. And hesed is sticky, steadfast, faithful attachment love. It's like that kind of love that sticks closer than a brother. And so the thing about growing in maturity is that when we reach adulthood, we can have mutually honoring hesed type relationships where we're not going away. We can see our failings, we can not get stuck in shame, and there is forgiveness and reconciliation, and there is an ongoing sense of safety and security. This is the kind of mutually honoring relationships that really allow us to flourish and that only adults can give. And then now going to EHS, and it actually stops here. EHS stops at emotional adult, but it says, I respect and love others without having to change them or becoming judgmental. I value people for who they are, not for what they can give me or how they behave. I take responsibility for my own thoughts, feelings, goals, and actions. I can state my beliefs and values to those who disagree with me without becoming adversarial. I am able to accurately assess my limits, strengths, and weaknesses. I am deeply convinced that I am absolutely loved by Christ and do not look to others to tell me I'm okay. I am able to integrate doing for God and being with Him, thinking of Martha and Mary. My Christian life has moved beyond simply serving Christ to loving Him and enjoying communion with Him. Okay, you guys, we are almost done. We have two more stages. So, the parent stage, this is the birth of the first child, or again, serving younger generations within the community, all the way until the youngest child reaches that adult stage. The primary task is to sacrificially take care of children, which again, we think of attunement. And what happens when this task is failed is distant or conflicted family relationships. In the parenting stage, you are learning how to sacrificially care for your children from a place of joy, that there is not a resentment being built up or expecting anything else in return. You may feel really tired or in over your head, but there's still going to be a deep sense of appreciation and of joy, and that the sacrifice is going to be out of a place of joy and not from being begrudged. And the thing about this is that when we do not have the capacity to serve our children well or with joy, they don't see that as, oh, mommy's having a hard time having capacity for my needs right now. She's probably feeling overwhelmed. They don't have that capacity to see that. All they see is, I'm a burden. My needs are too much. I'm needy. And so it's really important for us that we take the personal task to protect, serve, and enjoy our family seriously. And in order to do this, we need for our community to give the opportunity for parents to sacrificially contribute to our family. We need to have a devotion to take care of our children without expecting to be taken care of in return. And so to do that, we need a community that promotes devoted parenting. We also need to allow and provide spiritual parents and siblings for our children. We need a community that encourages relationships between children and extended spiritual family members. Like I was saying before, if you think of the Swiss cheese, it's like if I struggle to do hard things, yet I have people within my community who can model that for my children well, they're going to pick up those skills, even though I myself might lack some of them. Then we need to learn how to bring our children through difficult times and return to joy from other emotions. So we have to pass down the emotional regulation that we have within ourselves, that we ourselves learned. We need a community that supports parents by giving them encouragement, guidance, breaks, and opportunities to recharge. When we fail to earn our maturity or receive what we need for our community, we are seeing family members at risk, deprived, and feel worthless or unimportant. This often comes out through performance, people pleasing, and fawning of our children. Children then have to care for parents, which is impossible and leads to child abuse, neglect, and or parentified children, which leads to pseudo-maturity instead of facilitating their maturity. And pseudo-maturity really is just that lack of maturity, but it looks like maturity on the outside. So on the outside, I might appear stoic because I can suppress my emotions, and so I look peaceful and I look like I have it all together, but inside I've not dealt with emotions because I'm constantly suppressing them. And it's important for us to know that we cannot pass down what we ourselves do not possess. Children are vulnerable to peer pressure, to cults, to any misfortune, and are less likely to succeed in life's goals when parents fail to reach their maturity. Parents get overwhelmed without extended family support. There's also a hopeless, depressed, and disintegrating family units that develop. And so the beauty of parenting is that it does involve sacrifice, but you're actually becoming your fullest version of you that the Lord designed for you to be in that sacrifice. So even though you're giving of yourself in a sacrificial way, you're actually becoming a whole, full, mature version of you. And in order for us to learn how to protect and serve and enjoy our families, we actually need to be able to have community support and elder guidance. Mature parents realize that they cannot do this on their own and that they need support from other people who are mature in their own stages of their life. And then lastly, my favorite stage, I I hope that if you are listening to this and you are in the elder stage, I just want to share, elder stage first is the beginning when the first child enters the adult stage. I don't know if I share this with you guys yet, but I have unmedicated ADHD, so sometimes I do veer off and I do a pretty good job at editing the podcast so that my brain doesn't totally go off like squirrel. But there are many times I'm having a reel myself, and I actually warn my podcast guests about that beforehand. I'm like, I have ADHD. I do my best to say my thoughts as well as I can. But yeah, anyone who knows me knows that we can spiral really fast. Okay. Elder stage though, you guys, elders are so needed, and in so many ways, they are the ones who sacrificially care for the community. So it's someone who has graduated from that parent stage to now the elder stage. And when we do not have elders who are stepping into their role, the overall maturity of the community declines. Is that not what we are seeing right now? And I think for so long, elders have, just generationally been continued to be pushed off to the side. Things that we used to need to call someone older than us for to be able to see, can you explain to me what mortgage rates are, whatever it might be. Now we can get on the internet and look everything up. It's almost like Google and Pinterest are replacing all the different ways that historically our elders that have been pouring into us, how to host a Thanksgiving dinner. These are all things that we would have relied on our elders for that are being replaced by technology. And so if you are an elder, I pray that this part of this episode encourages you. It helps you to see the great value that you have. You are so needed in your community. It says that most in our culture never make it to this level of maturity. And it's incredibly sad to see because the success of a community is fully reliant on elders successfully living in their elder role. We need the presence of elders to guide and to advise us in the other stages of maturity. The personal task of an elder is to establish an accurate community identity and act like their self in the midst of difficulty. Elders need a community that recognizes them as elders. Elders need to prize each community member and enjoy the true self in each individual, looking past their flaws and facades to see the person that they have been designed to be. So elders parent and mature the community. And in order to do that, elders need the community to be able to foster ways that the community can interact with the elders at all their different various stages. And then lastly, elders give life to those without a family through spiritual adoption. And this happens because a community places a high value on being a spiritual family to those with no family. An elder is meant to be a free agent of joy. They have gone through healing and are now open to freely giving joy and great delight and cherishing every member of their community with no favoritism. And this is really sad, you guys, because when an elder fails to be an elder, there is a meaninglessness, disorder, a loss of direction, and disintegration of all social structures. We see this from government to family. Life-giving interactions diminish along with life-giving interdependence, studying the community's growth. Fragile, at-risk people fail to heal or survive. When elders do not lead, unqualified people do, resulting in immature interactions at every level of the community. When the family lists are not individually taken care of, poverty, violence, crisis, crime, and mental disorders increase. Is this not what we are presently seeing in our world right now? True elders establish an accurate community identity by finding out what their community has been designed to be by God rather than imposing what they would like it to be. True elders can handle criticism and rejection. They can speak the truth in love even when it's not easy or popular, serve without being appreciated, encourage needed growth and change, delight in young people's skill and power, and place what is best for the community over personal fairness or preference. And in so many ways, maturity in every stage is seen by creating belonging, where others can be with us and belong, where we give and receive joy. As we grow older, may we become a people who grow in ever increasing dependence on the Lord. Spiritual maturity is not about big platforms, preaching powerfully, even having a podcast mic in front of you. It is the spontaneous love that we have in our heart towards our enemies, those who have hurt us or wronged us, those who are not like us, and the least of these. This is spiritual maturity. And spiritual maturity is a lot more about becoming the truest version that the Lord made us to be before sin entered the world. It is an unbecoming of wounds and broken patterns and a surrender to who He has made us to be. We all need each other, and how much more beautiful the world would be if we all grew up into the fullest, most mature version of ourselves in each stage. So, if there's one thing that you take away from today's podcast episode, I pray that it is for you to know that it's never too late. I say this all the time. It is never, ever too late. The Lord is meeting you right where you are right now. And I pray that you pause and take the time to pray and to see, Lord, where are there pockets in my maturity? I promise you, the journey to earn maturity is worthwhile. The trauma of not receiving the good that you needed in each stage does not need to be the end of your story. The Lord has made you for so much more, a fuller, mature version of yourself in every stage that you will go through in your life. So it's never too late, and it can start today, because today is the day of salvation. I'm going to ask that if you have enjoyed any of these episodes, may you kindly leave a review. It helps the furthering of the podcast. If you like and share with a friend any podcast episodes that you've liked, we have 4 so far. If you have liked all 4, would you consider sharing with 4 different people one of each episode that you think they would benefit by? If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you could follow or subscribe. And if you're watching this on YouTube, if you could subscribe as well, leave comments. It's very helpful. It helps to reach the podcast. I would greatly appreciate it. And I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.